one of these paper stars is a reading prompt. Honestly, that's kind of creepy. This whole book is a Black Mirror episode. I have absolutely lost control of my physical TBR in these last couple of months. I don't know what happened. I was in a book buying ban one day, and then all of a sudden I was buying books left and right. This is my toxic trait. This is one of my red flags. For some reason, whenever I buy a book, no matter how excited I am to read that book, the second that I own it, I immediately lose interest. I had to come up with a little bit of a plan to help myself pick up the books that I own, and that plan is a TBR jar. Obviously, this is not a novel concept. I've seen a lot of people do TBR jar picks, my monthly TBR or whatever, and I love the concept. I got this giant Yakult shaped bottle, and I folded a bunch of paper stars at the bottom, and each one of these paper stars is a reading prompt. I ended up picking out the prompt Dark Academia. I ended up picking out 3 books from my physical TBR. Of the 3, I ended up going with If We Were Villains by ML Rio, because this has been on my TBR for quite a while. This is like a murder mystery. There's a group of friends. They go to a classical conservatory and they're all thespians, so they're all a bunch of theater kids, and currently they're working on Shakespearean plays. I'm not entirely sure. Listen, my knowledge of Shakespeare is limited to what I've learned in middle school and high school. It's definitely focusing a lot on this theater thing that they have going on. I really have no background in theater. I feel like right now a lot of things are going over my head because I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Because they're talking about casting and auditioning for things, and I'm like, dude, don't think I've ever auditioned for anything in my life. The closest thing that I've ever had to like auditioning was when I did background acting with one of my friends, but like those were like not even auditions. They just kind of look at you. So like I haven't read that much. I'm only on page 34. I'm a little bit bored right now. Just don't care about half of the things that they're talking about. And I'm having a hard time focusing on this book at this moment. Honestly, the only thing that's kind of keeping me engaged right now is how similar it is to The Secret History. The narrator of the story is really giving me Richard Papin. And I love Richard Papin, but the thing is, the tone of this book is quite serious, and the magic of The Secret History was how serious the characters were, but the tone of the book was a comedy. I'm afraid to like keep on reading because I don't want this to put me in a reading slump. I'm that uninterested in it right now. I am on Act 2 of If We Were Villains. The first act of this book, it was a little bit of a snooze, if I'm being completely honest with you. It did pick up on the very last scene of that act. The rest of it was really just set up for that. Each act, there's a prologue, and the prologue is set in the present day. And then the scenes that follow is basically Oliver, who is the narrator of the book. It's basically him retelling the story to the detective that was working the case. I feel like I know exactly who got murdered. We don't know yet, but I have a feeling who it is, just because this character is basically the Bunny Corcoran of this book. If you're not familiar with Bunny Corcoran, he's from The Secret History. So, you know, the structure is very similar, and you can definitely tell where this book is trying to emulate it. As somebody who has very limited knowledge of Shakespeare and has little to no knowledge of theater, I feel like there's a lot of illusions that are just going way over my head. The only thing that I was able to spot was that Oliver believes that things started to go downhill between the friend group after they did Macbeth, and I know that there's this thing about Macbeth being cursed. I think you're not even supposed to say the word Macbeth in theater because it's bad luck, and the fact that it seems like things started to go downhill for them after they did Macbeth is, I'm assuming, an allusion to that so-called curse. But that's the only thing I've been able to spot, because again, I have no idea about theater superstitions or like theater culture or anything of that sort. Actually starting to pick up now. I'm actually kind of invested in the story now. I'm still not really loving the writing style. I'm not loving the way that the dialogue is flowing, but why did my voice just crack? Hopefully it stays on this wave because I still have a decent amount to go. much since I last talked to you guys. I've been distracted rewatching Supernatural for the 10,000th time. I'm just not invested in the story enough to want to pick it up over other things. I keep on getting distracted. But the thing is, once I start reading it, it's not that bad. I actually kind of like what's happening in the story now, but I'm still not really caring all that much about the characters, which is kind of important because this story is very much like a character study. I think this is technically considered like a literary thriller, so it is very character based. Well, if you just want to rewatch Supernatural right now, like that is all I want to do. I'm just like towards the end of season 2. Season 3 has a lot of my favorite episodes in it. What am I even talking about anymore? I feel like words are coming out of my mouth, but they're not making any sense. I think it's time for me to shut up and go to bed. I finished it. I think everything that I said earlier still stands. A lot of this book was honestly a fucking snooze for me. I definitely think that this is a book that would be appreciated more by somebody who has a deeper understanding and a deeper knowledge of Shakespeare, and definitely a bit of a connection with theater, which I have neither. I mean, like, you understand it because a lot of times the students would switch to Shakespearean quotes and that's how they would speak to each other, and within the context of the conversation and the context of the situation, you do understand what's happening. But I feel like those conversations would be more of value if you had at least previous knowledge of said Shakespearean works, especially the ending. Like, the ending, again, I understood it based on context clues and what was going on, but I have an inkling that I would have a deeper appreciation for the ending if I had a better knowledge of Shakespeare. With that being said, I don't think you necessarily need knowledge of Shakespeare in order to read the book. I just don't know if you would enjoy it as much. I feel like it definitely hindered my experience in reading the book because I just wasn't as privy to little inside jokes, if you will. And I just couldn't help but keep on going back and referring to the secret history as I was reading this book because it is so reminiscent of it. Why is my voice cracking? The way that the story is structured, how the characters acted, like so much of the story reminded me of the secret history that I know it's unfair. I know it's so unfair of me to keep on comparing this to the secret history, but it's really difficult not to. I think this is just a case of this book not being for me, and that's totally fine. Not every single book is meant to be for everybody, so I did enjoy parts of the book, and I think a lot of the themes were really, really well done. I don't have any big problems with the book other than the fact that I couldn't fully connect with the characters, especially since this book is very much a character study of all of these students. And if you're reading a character study about a character that you can't quite connect with, it's hard to enjoy it. So I'm gonna settle on 2.5 star rating for this book. It wasn't bad at all, it just wasn't for me. There's our first book done from our TBR jar. I think I'm gonna do one more book for this video. I have my little TBR jar here. We're gonna shake it up and there you go. There's our little star. So I got a book that has been on your shelf for years. I could have picked so many different books for this because I have some books on my shelf that have been here since middle school that I have not read. But I picked out 3 of those books. All of these books have been on my shelf since either 8th grade or freshman year of high school. I have Caraval. I think this is definitely the newest of all the books that I picked out. I've been meaning to read this for so long. I'm definitely very, very intrigued by the spin-off series, Once Upon a Broken Heart, but I cannot allow myself to read it without having read this series. I know you don't have to, but with the way that my brain works, I can't not read this series. And then I also have The Beauty of Darkness by Mary E. Pearson. This is the 3rd book in the Remnant Chronicles series. I really enjoyed the series and I'm ready to finish it because, similar to the Caraval series, I really, really want to start the spin-off series of this, which is Vow of Thieves, I think it's called. But this is a chonker. I don't know if the camera caught the dust that just blew off of that, but oh my god, that was dusty. I should dust my books more. That was gross. And this is probably the oldest book on my TBR, and that is Illuminae by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. I've heard amazing things about this book, and I've specifically heard amazing things about the audiobook, which I actually own, and I have owned it for years as well. Like, it's been in my Audible library for years, but obviously I have not read it or listened to it. Look at how cool this is. The dust jacket is like this plasticky material, and like the actual naked hardcover looks like a file, and it has like these redacted areas. And then the actual book itself is like told through emails, interviews. I don't even really know what it's about. I think I'm just so intrigued by this book because of the format. I'm really leaning towards this, so I think I'm gonna go with this one. So this very first page is a document from a person called Ghost IDs, and he's talking about like basically what's gonna be in this entire book. And he's saying that this is like all of the intel that they could find on this incident that happened like from a year ago. And at the very end, he kind of signs it off with, profanity remains censored as per your instruction. Sure, the story kicks off with the death of thousands of people, but God forbid there be cussing in it, right? Ignore my background, ignore my shelves. I'm in the middle of redoing them right now, so they're looking a little crazy. But I haven't even really discussed this book with you guys, and I'm that far into it. I want to say that's about 60-ish%. And this book goes by really, really quickly because I've already explained this, but it's like multimedia. There's lots of pictures, and there's like pages sometimes where it's just like that. It's a YA sci-fi, and all of the YA sci-fi elements that I was expecting are definitely in here. There's spaceships, there's space wars, there's like a plague of sorts. It's crazy. It's jam-packed with action, and it's honestly been such a good time reading this book. I switch off between listening to the audiobook and reading the physical book. Sometimes I do it together. I rarely ever do that. If I'm listening, I'm usually just listening. If I'm reading, I'm just reading. But like the experience of this book is highly, highly enhanced by listening to the audiobook and reading it at the same time, because it feels like you're watching a movie. Because there's like a lot of graphics, and some of the graphics in this book, they obviously can't narrate that, but the audiobook has a full cast, and all of the voice actors have done a phenomenal job, and there's like sound effects and everything. It's like such an immersive experience to listen and read at the same time. So that's been really fun. I've been really, really enjoying this so far. So we have two main characters in this book, Ezra and Katie. The very, very beginning of the book, they broke up, and on the same day that they broke up, their planet got attacked, and basically a whole intergalactic war started. They were trying to flee from the attack. They ended up getting separated. Katie ended up on the science ship, and Ezra ended up on the military ship, conveniently. And Ezra got enlisted into the military as soon as he turned 18 because he has like exceptional hand-eye coordination, I guess, because he's like an athlete. So he's now like a pilot for some of the fighter jets. And Katie, she's very, very good with computers. She's really good with technology and programming. Behind the scenes, she's like been hacking stuff, and she's been looking into things. And then her and Ezra like get into contact again. There's a subplot of like a second chance romance going on, which I'm actually really, really enjoying. I honestly thought that I wasn't going to care about the romance in this book because there's so much going on, but I actually really, really enjoy their relationship, or the redevelopment of their relationship, I guess. I'm actually really liking the protagonist here, even though she does some really reckless things sometimes. You know, she has the main character syndrome, but it's not super bad to the point where it's really annoying. That was actually one thing that I was really worried about when I started reading this book. Since it's told in this like multimedia thing, it's not your traditional narration style. I was worried that we weren't going to get to know the characters well enough and that they weren't going to be well fleshed out. These two authors actually do a very, very good job of showing these characters' personalities, even when they're just talking through instant message or if they're like emailing and stuff. The authors do a fantastic job with the dialogue. They feel like they have very distinct personalities. There's also been a lot of deaths books so far. These authors are brutal when it comes to deaths. They are not afraid to kill off characters. And it's also really cool because if you have a physical copy, as you can see here, there's like light and dark parts, and in the dark parts, that's when like a lot of action is happening. You're finding out clues obviously as you're reading, like they're dropping new information. You get to go back and kind of like look at some of those documents to go back to like check any clues. It's been almost kind of like a movie and a video game all at the same time. I don't know, this has been an experience. I'm having such a good time reading this book. I don't know if you can tell on the screen, but that is a face. And that face is made up of words. And by words, I mean the word Katie, as in the name of the female main character. This is a product of the male love interest. So throughout this book, while they're like emailing each other or whatever, he's been sending her like some really corny things like these. This is the worst one by far. This is the corniest one by far. At first, he sent her an apology made out of a rose, and then he sent her like a heart one. I think the heart one was a poem or something. I forgot. I'm not here to yuck your yum if you find this cute, but I think that's corny as fuck. She actually does find it cute. She said so herself. So I guess that's all that matters. Honestly, that's kind of creepy. But I guess you have to suspend your disbelief. This is a sci-fi. Maybe in this society, in this world, stuff like this is like normal. Anyways, I'm gonna continue reading. There's about to be like a really big black chunk that's coming up, so you know things are about to go down. Oh my god. This book is traumatic. I feel like my brain is short-circuiting because I can't tell if what I'm reading is even like, what is. This whole book is a Black Mirror episode. I finished Illuminae this morning. I wanted to buy the second and third book immediately, which I didn't. I did not break my book buying ban, but I was this close to buying the second and third book because I really care for the characters by the end. I really enjoyed this book. It was so action-packed. There was always something happening, and the authors did a fantastic job with the characters. Even the side characters, you still get to know their personalities really well, and you get to know their motivations really well. Like, they still feel like very compelling characters. Even if they're not on the page for super long, you actually start to care about them. I think I'm gonna give it a 4.5 stars. I really loved it. This is one of the most unique reading experiences of my life, and it took me by surprise. I had such a good time with this book. These are the 2 books that my TBR jar has chosen for me. If you guys enjoyed this idea, stay tuned for more. If you have any fun prompts that I can add to my TBR jar, please leave them in the comment down below. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys so much for staying tuned, and I will see you on the next one. Toodles!